YouTube channel brought to you by Red Heart Yarns. This is video 1 of the spring knit along for the textured triangle shawl. This is a beautiful pattern that is free over on redheart.com and uses 3 balls of the brand new Red Heart Soft Essentials yarn, which is an exclusive yarn to the Michaels store. This pattern and all of the instructions we will discuss today in the video can be found at the link right down there in the video description box below. While you're down there, go ahead and smash that like button, as my kids say, to let other people know that you enjoyed this video and you're participating in this knit along. Before we jump in with all of the instructions, why don't we go ahead and take a look at the materials just so that you and I have the same information. As I mentioned, the pattern is free over on redheart.com and the link is down in the video description box below. Along with the pattern, you will need 3 balls of Red Heart Soft Essentials yarn. Along with the yarn, you will need a pair of size 11 29-inch circular needles or longer. We will be making this shawl straight, but we need the length of the needles to accommodate the number of stitches we will have going on in the shawl. Along with this, we will need some stitch markers. I have gone ahead and made a couple of stitch markers, and I'm grabbing 1 removable stitch marker so that I can mark the front side of my work. Along with the stitch markers, you will need a good pair of scissors and some bent tip steel tapestry needles. As I mentioned, the information regarding all of these materials is in the link in the video description box below. Whenever you're in doubt of the yarn you need, the stitches you need, or you're looking for the extra material I'm providing, always check the video description box for the link to the Marley Bird blog post regarding the video, okay? Now let's take a look at the pattern so that we can see where we need to get started and make sure that we are on the same page and understand the pattern completely. Let's take a look at the actual pattern. On this side of the pattern, you can see where the materials are listed for the pattern, including the gauge swatch. So we want to achieve a gauge of 10 stitches that equal 4 inches and 16 rows that equal 4 inches in stockinette stitch. By this point, you should have completed your stockinette stitch gauge swatch. If you don't know how to do a gauge swatch, go ahead and click on that little button right up there and it will take you to the video that I did to show you how to do a gauge swatch for this particular shawl. Once you've completed your gauge swatch and you've determined the size needle that you should be using, you're ready to jump in with the pattern. I know that on my gauge swatch, the size 11 needles, as recommended by Diane Moyer, the designer, works really well for me, so I'm ready. I can take a look over here, and this is where I want to just read through any of the notes that Diane has pointed out, because they're really there to help you understand the rest of the pattern. So first and foremost, it said the shawl is worked back and forth in rows. Fantastic. We are not going to be working in the round. We will be working back and forth in rows just like normal. So you might be asking yourself, why do I need circular needles? Well, she tells you right here, circular needles are used to accommodate the large number of stitches. If you're a new knitter, you might not be aware that by using those straight needles and squishing a bunch of stitches on those straight needles, you actually are hindering the uniformity of the stitches. So it's better to use circular needles as if they're straights, so that way you can get some better stretch between the stitches. It just works a little bit better. Don't be scared of the circular needles. I promise you guys, you're going to use them just as if they're straights. They just happen to be joined by the cord, and you will end up falling in love with circulars, okay? They're really awesome. The next thing is, it says that we're going to bind off loosely using a needle size 1 or 2 sizes larger. I'm just going to mention that right now because she's put it in the notes, but if you follow along with me through all of these videos, I will actually show you my favorite bind off, which ends up being nice and loose and stretchy, and you don't have to change your needle size. So make sure you stay with me through this entire knit along. The next thing we want to pay attention to is the special abbreviations and see if we maybe don't understand what these stitches are. So we will be using a knit front and back. KFB is a knit one front and back, increase. And so what you will do is you'll knit through the front leg of a stitch and then knit through the back leg of the same stitch to create 2 stitches out of 1. I will show you how to do this increase, so don't fret, but now we know that this is an increase she is going to want us to use. What I find interesting is she did not put down there a special abbreviation for yarn over, or yo, which is the increase we will be using for the lace and down the center spine of the shawl. Don't worry if you don't know how to do yarn overs, I will show you how to do that as well. Looks like that's all the information we need as far as the vital stuff for the pattern. Once we are past all of that, we can come right here and we can see where it says shawl, and this is where it jumps into the pattern. One of the really fabulous things about this pattern is it's already broken up into 4 sections, making this a really easy knit along for me to teach you because I can separate this up into 4 easy, biteable videos, right? The really digestible work you can get into. What's crazy though is as we look through these instructions, we will do several rows here, and then we have setup rows, and we do several rows here for the setup rows. And then when we get to section 1, it's row 4 and 5, and then you repeat those until you get 72 stitches. It might be like, okay, that's not so hard, I can keep repeating those, but some of us can get really lost and not really know what row we're on and what if we make a mistake and just get really confused. So what I have done and what you will want to make sure you've done is go to that link in the video description box below that I mentioned. You want to print off these instructions, which are line by line detailed instructions for you to stay track with your shawl. That's right. I have taken all of the instructions from the actual pattern and broken them down row for row, so that way as you're working along, you can actually put a check mark down each row as you complete it. That way you can stay on track throughout the entire pattern. I've done this for each section of the pattern, so make sure as you go from one video to the next, you do go to that blog post for that particular section and download the line-by-line instructions for that section. You can see here that for section 1, it is actually 4 pages. So it separates it off into 4 pages. It gives you the detailed written instructions of what you're supposed to do, and it gives you the stitch count you should have at the end of each one of those rows. So it makes it really foolproof. Isn't this fantastic? And once again, this is only available at marleybird.com, which is in the link provided down in the video description box below. So I wanted to really make sure this knit along is as accessible and easy for you to follow as possible. And I feel like providing these for you is the best way to do that. So once again, make sure you download or print off these instructions. That way we can keep track. Okay, so that's a lot of talking. Now that we know how to read the pattern and we have our line-by-line instructions, we can go ahead and begin. So knitters, let's get knitting. It's time to make the garter tab, which is the beginning of this shawl. The instructions have us begin by casting on 2 stitches. So we want to begin with a slip knot. Place the tail of the yarn in the palm of your hand. Take your working yarn, wrap it around your forefinger and middle finger. When you come back up, cross over. After you cross over, turn your hand, go underneath the front loop and grab the back loop and then pull those off of your fingers. You now have a slip knot. Grab your needle and place that loop directly onto your needle. You can separate the yarn legs, the tails down here, and you will have that stitch nice and snug on your needle. It does not matter how we cast on these stitches, so I will do a knitted cast on. Place the needle with your slip stitch in your left hand. Take your right hand needle and going from left to right through that loop, place your right hand needle into that loop. Take your working yarn, wrap it around your needle, just like so, and then pull that loop through the loop that was on your left hand needle. Now I want you to extend the new stitch that you just created. You're going to take your left hand needle, swivel around and scoop up that stitch. Okay, so now we have 2 stitches. I'm going to show you to do that one more time. You will go into the slip knot, yarn over your right hand needle, come out of the slip knot, extend swivel the left hand needle, and you're going to scoop going up from underneath and place that stitch on the left hand needle. We now have 2 stitches. So if you're following along with the line by line instructions, you can go ahead and tick off that first box. Now we want to go ahead and we will knit these 2 stitches, and we will do that for 8 rows. You'll notice in the line by line instructions, I've written it out for 8 rows. So we will just knit these 2 stitches for 8 rows. We will end up with 4 garter stitch ridges. So I go into the stitch, make sure you aren't using your tail, grab your working yarn, wrap your working yarn around the right hand needle, come out that stitch, and now the stitch that we went into on the left hand needle, we want it to jump off. So we go in, around, out, off. Okay, so that's 1. We will then place the needle that has all the stitches on it in our left hand, put the empty needle in our right hand, and we will do it again. Make sure you are not accidentally going into that purl bump there. You want to make sure you're just going into the stitch as it's on the left hand needle. You go into the stitch from left to right, take your working yarn, wrap it around the right hand needle, come out that stitch and off. In, around, out, off. So that's 2 rows. In, around, out, off. In, around, out, off. There's 3 rows. You'll notice after I finish, I just rotate and I put my needle with the stitches on it back in my left hand and I knit them. In, around, out, off. In, around, out, off. I will continue doing this until I've completed the 8 rows. Once you've completed your 8 rows, your work looks a little something like this. You should have 4 garter ridges if you were to stretch out your work. And I just finished my row 8, and I'm not going to turn my work yet, okay? So this is my row 8. And what will happen now is I am going to rotate my work 90 degrees. So now I'm looking at my work just like so. And I will take my right hand needle and into that ridge, this is what I'm going to do. Are you ready? Taking my right hand needle, I'm going right into that ridge. Okay. I'm going to yarn over my needle, and then I'm going to pull that yarn over right through that ridge. So there's 1. I go to the next ridge, I go right into it, yarn over, pull that yarn over through that ridge, and there's 2. I'm going to do this for each ridge. So I'm going to come down here to the next one. I'm going right into the ridge, yarn over my needle, pop that yarn over back through that ridge, okay? So it's just like it's coming through the stitch, just like that. So there's 3. I have to do 1 more, so I have to come down here to this one. So I come down here, in the ridge, yarn over, pop it out. And this is a little bit tricky, so take your time. But at this point, you should have 6 stitches. Now what I have to do is I have to rotate my work again, and right here where we cast on those 2 stitches, we're going to pick up 2 stitches down there. So all I want you to do is just go right into a loop. See, I'm right into a loop, yarn over, and pop through that loop. So there's 1. Go into the next loop over, yarn over, pop through that loop, and there's 2. So I have work that now is over here with these 2 stitches. I have 4 stitches that are going on in the body, and I have 2 stitches that I picked up along this edge. So this is what is called a garter tab beginning. So we started with this garter stitch here, then we picked up stitches along the side, and what will happen as we continue on through the shawl, this garter stitch right here will continue down the edges of the shawl. This is a really great start to many different shawl patterns. So now you know how to do the garter tab beginning, and it might be a little bit tricky picking up the stitches, but take your time. Don't worry, as long as you get them on there and you have the right number of stitches by the end of this row, so you should have 8 stitches, you will be just fine. Now that we have the garter tab, it's time to do the setup row. So here we go. Now I can go ahead and I'm going to turn my work. So I'm looking at the wrong side of my work according to the instructions. And I will start off by knitting 2 stitches. So I will go ahead and knit my first 2 stitches. So knit 1 and knit 2. And now I will purl 4 stitches. Remember, when you purl, you have to bring your yarn between your needles so that your yarn is in front. Take your right hand needle and go from right to left into the stitch through the front, just like so. Take your yarn and go over top of the needle and then have that stitch pop out and off. So in, around, out, off. In, around, out, off. In, around, out, off. Now I need to knit 2 stitches. So I take my yarn, I go between my needles, put my yarn back to the back, and I will knit 2 stitches. So I knit 1 and I knit 2. So we still have our 8 stitches, but now we have at least worked 1 row. If you want further instructions or more detailed instructions on how to knit or purl, please go ahead and visit all of the videos I have in the playlist of me teaching my mom how to knit. There's a link to it in that little I button right there or down in the video description box below. Just in case you feel like, you know what, I feel like I need to learn to knit and purl just a little bit better, those are some great videos for you to check out. Moving on to the next row. I will go ahead and I will turn my work, and this is where I want to make sure that I am pulling my work down so that way this purl bump right here is not accidentally getting pulled up like that, right? We don't want to do that because that looks like it has extra stitches, and that's not what we want. So we want this to come down, and we should have some purl bumps on the outsides and some knits there in the center. Remember, knits look like V's, so those are my knits right there. And we are ready for row 2. So row 2, this is what we do. We have to knit 1 stitch, and now we will knit front and back. You ready? This is that special stitch, and we need to know how to do it. You ready? You will go into the next stitch, yarn over your needle, come out the stitch, extend your right hand needle just ever so slightly, and then swivel your right hand needle around and go in to the back leg of that same stitch. Yarn over, and now pull that yarn over back through that back leg. Okay, so I have created 2 stitches where there was only 1. Now I can let this stitch from my left hand needle fall off, and now I have 2 stitches. Now I will go ahead, I will knit 1 stitch, and we will do a yarn over. Okay, are you ready? We're going to learn a new stitch. Our yarn is in back. We're going to bring it up between our needles and then take the yarn and literally just put it over top of our right hand needle, placing our yarn back to the back. And this little bit of yarn right there that's resting on our right hand needle, that is our yarn over. So we want to make sure that does not disappear. So make sure you hold it there, because the next part of the instruction says to grab a stitch marker. So I'm grabbing one of the ones I made and place that stitch marker on your needle. Once you've done that, you will then knit 2 stitches. So I will then go ahead and knit the next 2 stitches. So I knit 1 and I knit 2, and I will place a marker again. So I'm going to grab the next marker that I made, place it on my needle, and I follow along in the instructions. And the instructions say to yarn over again. Okay, so here we go. My yarn is in back. I go between my needles, take my yarn, rest it right over top of my right hand needle, just like that. And that is my yarn over. So I want to make sure it stays there, so I will hold it. Now I will knit 1 stitch, and I will do a knit front and back again. So this next stitch I have to do a knit front and back. You ready? I go into the stitch, yarn over my right hand needle, come out the stitch, extend my right hand needle ever so slightly, and then swivel it around and go in to the back leg of that same stitch, yarn over my right hand needle, and then bring that stitch back through where I went in. Okay, so now I have 2 where I had 1. and let that stitch fall off. And I finish off with a knit 1. Okay, you see how that looks so far? I'm going to take a moment right here, and along with these stitch markers, I will grab the removable stitch marker that I mentioned, and I will place it on the front of my work, just like this. I'm just threading it right through the stitches, just to signal to me, hey, this is the right side of your work. I want to make sure you remember that. Okay, so here's where we are so far. We have already established what the center spine stitches are going to be. That's what these 2 knits are going to be that are in between these 2 markers that I made. And then what will happen throughout the pattern, these yarn overs on the outside of those markers are going to increase our triangle down the center spine of our shawl. On the outside of our shawl, we are using knit front and backs to increase the wingspan of our shawl, okay? So we have set this up so far. We have 1 more row in the setup row. So let's go ahead and turn our work. And we will do row 3 of the setup row, which is very simple. We will knit 2 stitches. So knit 1, knit 2. You'll notice that that keeps those first 2 and last 2 stitches in garter stitch the whole time, so you will always do that. So you'll knit 2 stitches, and now we will purl 8 stitches. So my yarn is in back, I bring it between my needles, and now I'm ready to purl, because your yarn has to be in front of the needles before you go into the stitch to purl. So there's 1, 2. You'll see here, this is what the yarn over looks like. See how it looks like just this yarn literally resting right on your left-hand needle? It's exactly what it's supposed to look like. So you just take your needle, go right into that big stitch, yarn over, and then pop that out. Remember, you have a stitch marker there, so just slip your stitch marker, go ahead and continue purling the next 2 stitches. Slip the stitch marker. I'm to my big yarn over again, so I simply just purl it just like I would any other stitch, and I will purl 2 more, which leads me to my last 2 stitches, right? Because I just purled 8, and now it's time to knit the last 2 stitches. So if I'm going to knit and my yarn's in front, I want to make sure I go between my needles, bring my yarn to the back, and I will knit the last 2 stitches, which keeps those edge stitches in garter stitch, right? So now I can turn my work, and look at this. So far, you have completed a garter tab beginning, and you have established the setup rows, added your stitch markers to indicate where your center spine stitches are going to be created, and you're ready to jump into section 1. So this is where we are. This is a very good beginning. If at this point you're like, you know what, it feels a little bit sloppy, I think I want to rip it out and start over, just because now I kind of got the hang of it. I can see what the knit 2 togethers are. I can see how the yarn overs work. This would be a really good time to go ahead and start over if you want to, okay? I'm not saying you have to start over. I'm just giving you permission that if you're just like, it looks a little sloppy, I want to start over, you absolutely can, okay? Because I know you just learned a couple of new things there, and it might not be as pretty as you want it to be. So if you want to go ahead, stop here, rip out what you did, rewind the tape, or I guess it's not a tape, huh? Go back in YouTube and rewatch everything that we just did and do it again. This would be a good time to do that. If not, let's go ahead and move on to the official section 1. One thing that's fantastic about section 1 is it's just a repeat of 2 rows. So I'm going to show you how to do these 2 rows, and then all you need to do is simply follow the line by line instructions and tick off each row as you complete it until you get to 72 stitches. Let me show you how to do it. So row 4, which is the first row for section 1, we begin by working a knit 1. So I go ahead, I knit 1 stitch. Now it's time to do my knit front and back again. So I will go into the stitch, yarn over my right hand needle, come out the stitch, extend my right hand needle and swivel around, go into the back leg of that same stitch, yarn over, and pop out and off. So I've created 2 stitches. Now I will knit to the marker. So I simply just knit all of my stitches over to the marker. So here I am, I've knitted to the marker and I'm to my marker, there it is. Now I need to do a yarn over. Remember, my yarn is in back, so I bring it between my needles and then I rest it right over top of my right hand needle. Make sure it remains there as I slip my marker, and now I will knit the next 2 stitches. It's okay that this yarn over is resting a little bit over top of my marker as long as my yarn over is still there. That's what's important, okay? So I knit the next 2 stitches, I slip my marker, and what I do over here, I have to also do over here. So if I had a yarn over before this marker, I will have a yarn over after this marker. So I've slipped my marker, my yarn is in back, I bring it between my needles, and then rest it right over top of my right hand needle. And I go ahead and I knit to my last 2 stitches. So I'm just knitting all the way until I get to the last 2 stitches. And just as we began with a knit 1 and knit front and back, we will end with a knit front and back and knit 1. So I go into the stitch, yarn over my right hand needle, pop out the stitch, extend, swivel, go into the back leg of that same stitch, yarn over my right hand needle, pop out and off, and then knit my last stitch. Pretty easy, right? So that's the first row. So that's row 4. So what did we do again? Let's look at this one more time. We knit 1, we knit front and back, which gave us 2 stitches, so we increased out here. And then we knit to our marker. So we knit 1, 2, 3, and that put us to our marker. And then we did a yarn over. If you ever need to check your row and be like, did I remember my yarn over? If you stretch out your stitches, your yarn over literally looks like just yarn resting on top of your needle, and you'll start to see that big hole there, okay? That's what you want to see. So we have our yarn over, we slipped our marker, we knit our 2 center stitches, we slipped our marker, we did our yarn over, and then we knit to the last 2 stitches, which would put us right here, and this is our knit front and back, which gave us 2 stitches, which gave us our increase at the edge, and then we knit 1. Now we will turn our work after you do the little check mark on your line by line instructions, and we are ready for row 5. Now I am going to go ahead, let me put my yarn in my other hand. I'm trying to be consistent for all of you and show you how to do this with the English method. And row 5 is really simple. We will knit 2 stitches, so we knit 1, and we knit 2, and then we will purl all of these stitches until we get to the last 2 stitches, and we will knit those. So simply, just like before, we want to make sure our yarn goes between our needles and is to the front, and then we will purl all of these stitches. Remember, when you get to the yarn over, that it will look a little bit funny at the start, but you will treat it just like it's any other stitch. So here's my yarn over. See, it looks like a big hole. That's what we want. Put our needle right in there, just like we're going to purl, yarn over and off. Slip my marker. If you put your marker back there, you won't get it stuck in your yarn. And then I will slip my marker. I'm going to make sure it goes to the back and purl again to the last 2 stitches. And when I get to the last 2 stitches, I will knit those. Remember, I want to keep these first 2 stitches and the last 2 stitches in garter stitch. So if I'm going to knit them, I go between my needles with my yarn to put my yarn in back, and I knit the last 2 stitches. Okay? So you'll notice that when I'm on a wrong side row, and we know it's a wrong side row because I don't see my purple marker, remember? But I don't do any sort of increases on my wrong side row. I only do all of my increases on my right side row. So when I turn my work again, it's time to repeat my row 4, which is my right side row, and that's where I will work my knit 2 together right here. I will work my yarn overs on either side of my markers, and I will do my knit 2 together down here. That's it, you guys. You repeat row 4 and row 5 until you get a total of 72 stitches. As you get going along, your final project, as you get working, is going to look like this once you reach 72 stitches. Now, obviously, I have different stitch markers, but I did make these also. And you can see here where having the circular needles really comes in handy, because all of the stitches begin to rest on the circular needle and you can stretch it out and see what's going on. So as we take a look at this, we can already begin to see where the garter stitch along the edge that we've maintained is still garter stitch. Remember, knit those 2 stitches when we're on the purl side. And then we have stockinette happening in the body because we're knitting on one side, purling on the opposite side. And you'll notice we have these lovely yarn overs all down the center spine. So down the center 2 stitches on either side of the stitch markers where I've been doing my yarn overs, I have a nice line of yarn over increases. So when you get to 72 stitches, this is what your work should look like at that point. So far, it's not so bad, right? It's pretty manageable here, especially if you're a beginner knitter or you're an experienced knitter. We have done a garter tap beginning, we have placed stitch markers, we've done a knit front and back, and we've also done yarn over increases. So you've learned a bunch of stuff right here in section 1. But what's really great is section 1 isn't anything super intense. So you shouldn't be super lost by the time you get to 72 stitches. You'll be like raring to go, ready to jump into section 2. Now I do want to take this time to remind you that it is very important that you do have the correct stitch count before you go into section 2, before you follow the next video. So make sure when you get to the end of these rows, and if you're keeping track with your line by line instructions, you'll have no problem. Make sure you have 72 stitches because that will make going into the lace section that much easier. Okay, I've taken enough of your time. Make sure that you are part of the Facebook group. If you need any extra help, there are some really wonderful knitters and moderators and administrators in that group there to help you out. And I'm there also. But sometimes in the middle of the night, you might be like, oh my gosh, I'm stuck, and somebody can help you out. So make sure you have joined the Marley Bird Facebook group for this knit along. And then last but not least, please make sure you smash that like button. As my kids say, I really enjoy doing these videos, and it's a great way for you to be able to show me that you enjoy the videos and everything that I'm doing. All right, guys, so this is the texture triangle shawl, and this is the spring knit along for Red Heart Yarns, where I'm the proud national spokesperson. I will talk to you guys soon. Good luck with section 1. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see the progress of all of your shawls for section 1. Make sure you share a picture over on the Facebook page for a chance to win prizes during the knit along. I can't wait to see all of your hard work.